I'm almost always willing to take a chance on an RPG. While genre giants like Final Fantasy, Pokemon, and Tales of are usually at the forefront of the gaming world's attention, there's often a hidden gem or two lying around just beneath the big titles, waiting for the chance to become a cult classic. The question is, does The Legend of Legacy fall into that category? After all, the game is being described as a spiritual successor to Square Enix's Saga series, and many of the series' creators are on board. It certainly has the pedigree to qualify. Yet, for an RPG, the story is bare bones. Long ago, there was a great continent named Avalon, and while that continent is now the stuff of legends, a new island has recently appeared, which has also been named Avalon, because keeping things simple would be too easy. You choose one of 7 adventurers at the beginning of the game, each with his or her own incredibly shallow motivation. Your job as the player, no matter which character you pick, is to explore the island and see what secrets you can find. Story is often overlooked as one of the less important aspects of a game, and with many genres, that point of view is understandable. When you're playing an RPG, however, the expectations are a bit different. The genre is inherently slower than a majority of other types of games, and as such it is better suited to telling a more involved tale. Countless RPGs use their plot to motivate the player to continue playing. Often the story is so compelling that the player just has to see what's next. With that said, plenty of RPGs get along fine with very simple stories, and The Legend of Legacy could have fallen into that category if the world building and characterization were up to snuff. Many RPGs don't have very involved plots, but they do feature charming worlds and entertaining character interactions. In some games, you hardly notice the lack of plot when you're surrounded by such a charming world. But with The Legend of Legacy, the world is so utterly lacking in charm that playing through town scenes and reading the character exchanges feels about as appealing as dragging your face through gravel. Characters feel lifeless, and the attempts at humor are some of the most stilted I've seen from a video game in a long time. There's absolutely no substance to the plot, or world building in the slightest. The best way I can demonstrate the lack of effort put into creating an enjoyable world is to just show you the character recruitment process. Occasionally, when walking around the town area, you will find a party member that will be recruited after literally 2 lines of dialogue. I am not exaggerating, it really is that bare bones. Unfortunately, the story is not the only thing in The Legend of Legacy that has missed the mark. This has to be one of the dullest RPGs I have ever played in my entire life. The game follows a very static formula. You go out into an area and you explore each room until you fill the map up to 100%, so you can go back to town and sell the completed map for the cash needed to unlock the next area. The closest comparison I can make is the Atrian Odyssey series, in which you explore deep labyrinthine dungeons while keeping track of your progress on a map that you draw yourself. However, unlike Atrian Odyssey, the map fills in automatically as you walk around the area, taking away all the complexity and depth to map making, leaving you with nothing but running around a room aimlessly for 15 minutes. What makes matters worse is that environmental objects like trees will pop in as you walk around, making navigation confusing when looking at the top screen, as it's almost impossible to become familiar with any of your surroundings. I quickly got into the habit of staring at the bottom screen exclusively, although that led me to inadvertently run into enemy encounters more often than I'd like. Speaking of enemies, the battles in this game are some of the most obtuse I've seen in an RPG to date. The game lacks any sort of comprehensive tutorial, and the electronic manual is next to useless in understanding what's going on. You control a party of 3 adventurers, and before each round of battle, you choose a stance that determines what actions are better for your character to take. When your character is in the guard stance, for example, they will block enemy attacks aimed at your allies, attacking abilities are more effective when the character is in the attack stance, and so on. The problem with this system is that the stances are created in the menu, and cannot be altered while in battle. So if your tank character is low on HP, and you want someone else to temporarily cover that role, you better hope that you have the foresight to make a backup stance beforehand. The mechanic completely shatters any sense of flexibility that you can have in battle. Even though you might make a number of different stances, I still never felt like I could properly cover all of my bases in a fight, which is incredibly frustrating. What makes matters worse is that character progression is a random and confusing mess. There are no set levels or experience in The Legend of Legacy. Instead, characters level up attributes as they're used in battle, or at least they do some of the time. There isn't much consistency here. Sometimes characters will go for incredible amounts of time without leveling up anything, despite performing the same actions in every single battle. But there are also moments when you level up comically fast, like when one of my characters leveled up his basic attacks for 3 turns in a row. I'm not against the idea of having characters level up based on the skills they use, instead of the traditional leveling system. But there has to be some sort of direction and explanation given when your game is doing something so radically different from the norm. It didn't seem to matter much anyhow, since I was able to beat nearly every random encounter with the same tactics. I was even able to defeat most of the bosses using these same strategies. That is, when they weren't pulling moves that would one-shot my party out of nowhere, destroying 30 minutes of progress. Sadly, the presentation isn't compelling either. The game's graphical style is clearly going for a look similar to Bravely Default, but while that game sported absolutely beautiful artwork and gorgeous lighting effects, The Legend of Legacy feels like a cheap imitator. There's not nearly as much color, with every area having a washed-out look, and there's not much detail to be found either. It doesn't help that the character models are completely unexpressive as well. On top of that, the audio is unremarkable in every sense of the word. There was never a point where the music affected me in any way. At the very least, it was inoffensive, but that came at the price of being completely and utterly forgettable. There's really no reason for anyone to pick up The Legend of Legacy. I haven't played a game that was this mentally draining in quite a long time. I can't even think of a single reason to give the game a shot. I disliked it that much. There are plenty of other RPGs available on the 3DS, and even if you've exhausted all of them, you're still better off revisiting an old favorite than dropping money on this waste of time. Thanks for watching, and be sure to stay tuned to GameXplain for more on RPGs and other things gaming.